The sun dipped low over the sprawling fields of a quaint, forgotten village nestled in the heart of the countryside. The warm hues of the setting sun painted the horizon in fiery oranges and purples, casting a golden glow over endless rows of wheat swaying in the gentle breeze. Here lived Ayan, a young farmer whose life revolved around the rhythm of the earth. With each sunrise, his calloused hands dug into the soil, his heart beating in harmony with the land that had sustained his family for generations. But today was no ordinary day for Ayan. The weight of his responsibilities pressed heavily on his shoulders. The crops were failing, the wells were drying, and the village seemed to be losing its battle against time. Yet, with quiet determination and an unshakable love for his people, Ayan refused to surrender to despair. He dreamed of modernizing the village, of bringing hope where there was none. But his modest earnings and lack of resources made that dream feel like a distant star, visible yet unreachable. As the village settled into its quiet, evening rhythm, a sleek black car rumbled down the uneven dirt road leading into its heart. Inside sat Maya, a strikingly beautiful heiress with cascading black hair and eyes like liquid amber. Scrolling mindlessly through her phone, she exuded an air of sophistication and privilege. Hers was a life of grandeur, sparkling chandeliers, lavish parties and high-rise penthouses. Yet, despite her opulent surroundings, she felt trapped in a golden cage, suffocated by its emptiness. The driver hesitated as the road grew rougher, the car struggling over the uneven terrain. Suddenly, with a loud clunk, the car shuddered to a halt. Maya looked up, startled. "What's going on, Ravi?" she asked, her tone laced with frustration. "Ma'am, the car's axle seems to have broken. We're stuck," the driver replied, his voice tinged with concern. Maya sighed heavily before stepping out of the car. Her tailored designer dress and delicate heels were completely out of place on the dusty road, her heels sinking slightly into the dirt. As she surveyed the vast countryside stretching before her, both beautiful and daunting, she noticed the faint outline of a village in the distance. With no other choice, she began walking, her frustration slowly giving way to an odd mix of curiosity and nervousness. When Maya reached the village, her arrival did not go unnoticed. Her elegance stood in stark contrast to the villagers' modest attire. Whispers trailed her as she walked through narrow lanes, taking in the simple homes, barefoot children playing, and the mingling aromas of freshly baked bread and earthy fields. "Excuse me, miss," a deep, warm voice called out. Maya turned to see a tall, ruggedly handsome man with sun-kissed skin and strikingly kind eyes. His shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, revealing strong forearms dusted with dirt. This was Ayan, and his presence was both commanding and comforting. "You look lost," he said, a hint of amusement flickering at the corners of his lips. "I am," Maya admitted softly, her voice steady. "My car broke down a little way back. I was hoping someone here could help." Ayan nodded thoughtfully. "You've come to the right place. I'll take a look at it. But first you must be tired. Please, let me offer you some water." Maya hesitated. She wasn't used to accepting help, especially from strangers, but there was something about Ayan's sincerity that made her trust him. She followed him to a modest yet well-kept home on the village's edge. The walls were adorned with simple yet beautiful artwork, reflecting the village's culture, and the air carried the faint scent of herbs and spices. As Ayan poured her a glass of cool water, their hands brushed briefly. It was an innocent touch, but Maya felt a spark that caught her off guard. Ayan, too, seemed momentarily flustered, but quickly recovered, clearing his throat. "Your hands," Maya said softly, almost in a whisper. "They're rough, but they tell a story." Ayan raised an eyebrow, surprised by her observation. "These hands have only known hard work," he replied humbly. "But they're nothing compared to the wealth of experience someone like you must have." Maya's faint smile carried a tinge of sadness. Wealth doesn't always bring experience, she murmured. Sometimes it traps you in a life that feels more hollow than full. Ayan studied her for a moment, sensing the layers of pain hidden beneath her polished exterior. For the first time, Maya felt seen, not as the heiress admired by everyone, but as a woman searching for something real. As evening turned to dusk, Maya accompanied Ayan to the fields where he worked. The air had cooled, and the golden glow of twilight softened the world around them. Ayan spoke of the village's struggles, how the soil was losing its fertility, how outdated irrigation systems hindered growth, and how the villagers clung to hope despite the odds. "I want to change things," Ayan said, his voice resolute. "Not just for me, but for everyone here. This land deserves better, and so do its people." Maya was captivated by his passion. She had met countless men in her world of luxury, but none possessed the authenticity or depth of Ayan. He was a man rooted in purpose, and she found herself drawn to him in a way she couldn't explain. As they stood together under the vast expanse of the night sky, their conversation faded into a comfortable silence. The stars above seemed to mirror the emotions stirring between them, tentative yet undeniable. For the first time in years, Maya felt a sense of peace, as though she had found a place where she truly belonged. Little did they know, this chance encounter was only the beginning of a journey that would change not just their lives, but the fate of the entire village forever. Maya awoke the next morning to the soft rustling of leaves outside the window of Ayan's modest home. Sunlight filtered through the wooden shutters, casting golden streaks across the room. The simplicity of the place stood in stark contrast to the grand suites and polished marble she was accustomed to, yet it felt peaceful. The air was alive with the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers, a refreshing change from the sterile luxury she had left behind. Stepping outside, she found Ayan crouched near a small fire, brewing tea in a dented kettle. His movements were unhurried and calm, his presence grounding. The soft morning light played across his rugged features, making him look almost ethereal. For a brief moment, Maya stood still, watching him, a quiet warmth spreading through her chest. "Good morning," Ayan greeted, his voice carrying the same warmth as the sunlight on her skin. "Did you sleep well?" Maya nodded, offering a small, genuine smile. "Better than I have in a long time." "Tea?" he asked, holding out a small clay cup. She accepted, their fingers grazing briefly. The same electric spark she'd felt the night before surged through her once again, leaving her momentarily breathless. Ayan seemed to notice but didn't comment, instead gesturing toward a wooden bench beneath a sprawling banyan tree. As they sipped their tea, the village around them stirred to life. Women carried baskets of fruit balanced gracefully on their heads. Barefoot children darted through the fields, and the sound of laughter mingled with the chirping of birds. Maya watched it all unfold, struck by the raw, unfiltered beauty of the scene. "I've never seen a place like this," Maya admitted, her voice tinged with awe. "It's so raw, yet beautiful." Ayan chuckled softly. "It has its charm, but it's not without its struggles. Life here isn't easy. Every day is a battle, but it's one we fight together." Maya turned to him, her gaze lingering on his face. "And you? How do you find the strength to keep going?" Ayan's expression grew thoughtful, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. "I suppose it's because I've never known anything else. This land, these people, they're my family. Their struggles are my struggles, and their hope, that's what keeps me going." Her chest tightened. In her world, where wealth was abundant, but connection was rare, she had never encountered such selflessness. Ayan's quiet humility and unwavering dedication stirred something deep within her, a longing she didn't yet understand. Later that morning, Ayan insisted on inspecting her car. Maya followed him down the dusty road, watching as he examined the damage with focused precision. His resourcefulness, the way he improvised with limited tools, fascinated her. You're good at this, Maya remarked, leaning against a nearby tree, her tone light, yet sincere. Ayan glanced up, a playful smirk tugging at his lips. Out here, you learn to make do with what you have. You'd be surprised what you can figure out when you don't have a choice. Maya tilted her head, studying him. You make it sound so easy. It's not, he admitted, his voice quieter now. But I think the hardest things in life are the ones that shape us the most. His words lingered in the air, rich with truth. Maya found herself wanting to know more about his dreams, his fears, what made him laugh. There was a depth to Ayan that drew her in, making her realize she wasn't just passing through this village anymore. She was beginning to feel connected. To it. And to him. As the sun arched across the sky, Ayan invited Maya to join him in the fields. Handing her a woven basket, he guided her through the rows of crops, patiently explaining the harvesting process. Maya, unused to physical labor, stumbled more than once, eliciting bursts of laughter from Ayan. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She teased, narrowing her eyes at him. Maybe a little, he admitted, his grin wide and boyish. But I have to say, you're not half bad, for someone who probably never gets her hands dirty. Ayan listened without interruption, his unwavering gaze holding hers. When she finished, he reached out and gently took her hand. You're not alone here, Maya, he said softly. Not as long as I'm around. Maya's breath caught, the world around her seeming to fade, the warmth of his touch, the sincerity in his voice. It was overwhelming. For the first time in years, she felt seen, valued, and safe. That night, as lanterns glowed softly in the village streets, Ayan led Maya to a small clearing where a group of villagers had gathered. A local musician played a soulful tune on a flute, and the villagers swayed and danced, their laughter filling the cool night air. Would you like to join? Ayan asked, extending a hand toward her. Maya laughed nervously. I'm not much of a dancer. Neither am I, Ayan admitted, with a disarming grin. But sometimes it's not about how well you dance, it's about who you're dancing with. Blushing, Maya placed her hand in his, allowing him to guide her to the center of the clearing. The villagers cheered as the music picked up tempo. Ayan rested his hands lightly on her waist, while hers found their way to his shoulders. Their movements were hesitant at first, their rhythm awkward. But soon they fell into an easy flow, their laughter mingling with the music. As the tune slowed, so did they. Their eyes locked, and the world around them seemed to blur into nothingness. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, and she was certain Ayan could hear it. You're full of surprises, he murmured, his voice low and steady. So are you, she replied, her gaze dropping to his lips. For a moment it felt as though time itself had paused. The space between them grew smaller, the air thick with unspoken emotions, but just as their lips were about to meet, a burst of laughter from the villagers shattered the spell and they stepped apart, both flushed and flustered. Later that night, as Maya lay on the simple cot in Ayan's home, her mind replayed every detail of the evening, the warmth of his touch, the look in his eyes, the way he made her feel alive. She knew she was falling for him, and it both thrilled and terrified her. Their worlds couldn't have been more different, but as she gazed out at the endless stars above, she couldn't help but hope. Little did she know. Ayan lay awake too, staring at the same stars and thinking of her. For the first time in his life, he allowed himself to believe that perhaps the woman who had wandered into his world was meant to stay. The morning sun rose over the village, casting golden rays across the fields. Ayan was already hard at work, carrying sacks of grain to the storehouse. His movements were steady and purposeful, but his thoughts kept wandering, always to Maya. In just a week, her presence had become as natural and comforting as the sunrise. Yet every time he saw her, his heart raced as though it were the first. Maya emerged from the house, her silhouette framed by the soft morning light. She wore a simple dress borrowed from one of the villagers, her elegant features softened by the rural simplicity. To Ayan, she looked more radiant than ever. "Good morning," she greeted, her voice warm and bright. "Morning," he replied, setting down the heavy sack with a smile. "Ready for another day of village life?" Maya tilted her head playfully. "If it's anything like yesterday, I might be starting to enjoy it." Her words were light, but Ayan noticed something deeper in her expression. A quiet determination, a desire to belong. He had watched this transformation unfold over the past days, and it only deepened his admiration for her. Later that morning, Ayan took Maya to the community well, where a group of villagers had gathered. The well was old, its crumbling stone walls and rusted pulley system a testament to years of neglect. Ayan explained how the well's poor condition had made life harder for the village, how the lack of reliable water made farming unpredictable and forced the community to rely on increasingly scarce rainfall. Maya listened in silence, her heart heavy. These were challenges she had never even considered in her privileged life. The stark contrast humbled her. "Why hasn't anyone tried to fix it?" she asked softly. "We don't have the resources," Ayan said simply, his voice tinged with resignation. "Every rupee we earn goes to surviving the present. There's nothing left for the future." His words lingered with Maya long after they returned home. That evening, while Ayan repaired a broken plough in the courtyard, Maya sat nearby, lost in thought. She knew she could help, but she wasn't sure how he would feel about it. Ayan was proud, self-reliant, and deeply connected to his people. The last thing she wanted was for him to feel obligated to her. Finally, she gathered her courage. "Ayan," she began, her voice hesitant. "If there was a way to fix the well, would you want to?" He looked up from his work, his brow furrowing in surprise. "Of course. It would change everything for the village." "What if—" Maya hesitated, her heart pounding. "What if I could help?" Ayan set the plough aside, studying her with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Maya, I appreciate the thought, but this isn't your responsibility." "It's not about responsibility," she said firmly, meeting his gaze. "It's about doing what's right. You and this village have shown me so much kindness. Let me give something back." Ayan was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded, his voice quiet but resolute. "If you're serious about this, we'll do it together." The next morning, Maya made several discreet phone calls to her contacts in the city. Within days, a team of engineers arrived in the village to assess the well and begin repairs. The villagers were initially wary, their trust hard-earned. But when Ayan vouched for Maya, they welcomed the help with cautious optimism. As the project unfolded, Maya worked alongside the villagers, her hands blistered but her spirit energized. She laughed with the children, learned from the women, and found a new sense of purpose in the shared labor. Ayan was always close by, his quiet encouragement and steady presence a constant source of strength. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and crimson, Ayan approached Maya by the now functional well. His hands were rough and dirty from a day's work, but his smile was radiant. "You did it," he said, pride evident in his voice. "You've given this village hope." "We did it," Maya corrected gently, her eyes shining. "I couldn't have done it without you." For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of their shared accomplishment filling the space between them. Then, without hesitation, Ayan reached out and took her hand. "Maya," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've changed more than just this village. You've changed me." Her breath caught, and she searched his eyes, seeing a vulnerability he rarely revealed. "Ayan, she started, but her voice faltered as emotions overwhelmed her. "You don't have to say anything," he said quickly, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. "I just needed you to know." Maya stepped closer, her free hand resting lightly on his chest. "You've changed me too," she whispered, her voice trembling, "more than I ever thought possible." Their gazes locked, and in that moment the world seemed to disappear. Slowly, Ayan leaned in, and Maya met him halfway. Their lips brushed in a kiss, soft and tentative at first, then deepening as the emotions they had held back finally found release. When they pulled apart, Maya's cheeks were flushed, and Ayan's eyes were alight with joy. "This feels right," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "It does," he agreed, his voice full of conviction. "And I'll do whatever it takes to keep it that way." That night, as the villagers celebrated the repaired well with music and dancing, Maya and Ayan stood at the edge of the festivities, their fingers intertwined. They watched the people they had come to care for, their hearts full of hope and newfound love. Yet both knew this was only the beginning. The challenges of bridging their two worlds and facing societal expectations loomed ahead. But for the first time, neither felt afraid. Together they were ready to face whatever came next. But the days after the well's repair brimmed with a newfound energy in the village. The fields thrived under the renewed water supply, children laughed freely, and the air buzzed with an optimism that had long been absent. But amidst the joy, an undercurrent of tension began to weave its way through Maya and Ayan's lives, an unseen storm gathering strength. One afternoon, Maya sat at the edge of a sunlit field, her pencil moving across the pages of a notebook she had borrowed from the village school. Since arriving, she had rediscovered her passion for art, inspired by the vibrant life around her, the people, the landscapes, and, most of all, Ayan. She was so absorbed in her sketching that she didn't notice him approaching until his shadow stretched across her page. "You're talented," he said softly, his voice laced with admiration as he leaned over her shoulder. Startled, Maya quickly closed the notebook, her cheeks flushing. "It's just a hobby." "It's more than that," Ayan said, sitting beside her. His gaze lingered on her with quiet intensity. "You see the world differently, Maya. It's in your eyes, your actions, even your art. You have a way of bringing light to everything you touch." Her heart swelled at his words and she turned to meet his gaze. "You're the one who makes things better, Ayan. For me, for this village. You've shown me what it means to live with purpose." For a moment they sat in silence, the weight of their feelings hanging between them. Then Ayan spoke, his tone serious. "Maya, you've changed everything for me. When I think about the future, I can't imagine it without you." Maya's breath caught, her eyes shimmering with emotion. She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "I feel the same. I don't know what's ahead, but I know I don't want to lose this. Lose us." Their connection deepened in that moment, yet neither of them realized how fragile it was. That evening, as Maya sat by the window, her phone buzzed. She froze at the sight of the caller ID. Her father. Taking a deep breath, she answered. "Maya." Her father's voice was sharp, his displeasure palpable. "Where have you been?" "I've been trying to reach you for weeks." "I'm fine, Papa," she said cautiously, choosing her words carefully. "I needed some time away." "Time away?" he repeated, his tone incredulous. "Do you have any idea how irresponsible this is, and where exactly are you?" Maya hesitated before replying. "I'm in a village, helping people." "A village?" Her father's disbelief turned to anger. "What nonsense is this? You're a Kapoor, Maya. You belong in the city, running our business, not playing saviour in some god-forsaken place. Come home at once." Her frustration boiled over. "It's not nonsense, Papa. These people, this village, have shown me more meaning than I've ever felt in our world of boardrooms and parties. I've found something real here." Her father's silence was cold and ominous. Then, in a biting tone, he asked, "Does this something real involve a man?" Maya's breath hitched, the truth written in her silence. "I thought so," he said bitterly. "Whatever this is, it ends now. You're coming home, Maya. If you don't, I'll come and drag you back myself. And when I do, don't expect me to spare this farmer of yours." The call ended abruptly, leaving Maya trembling. Her father's threats were not empty, and the thought of him storming into the village to humiliate Ayan and the people she had come to love filled her with dread. The next morning, Maya found Ayan by the river. He was skipping stones across the water, his expression serene. But the worry in her eyes as she approached didn't escape him. "What's wrong?" he asked gently, stepping closer. Maya hesitated before telling him everything, her father's disapproval, his threats, and her fear of the chaos he could unleash. Ayan listened in silence, his jaw tightening with every word. When she finished, he let out a slow breath. "Maya, I won't let anyone hurt you or this village, but if leaving is what you need to do, I'll understand." His calm acceptance broke her heart. "Ayan, I don't want to leave," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But I can't let my father ruin everything here. I couldn't bear it if he hurt you." Ayan reached out, his hands cupping her face. "Maya, this village has survived storms far greater than your father. And me? I'm not so easily broken, but I can't make this decision for you." Her voice wavered as she leaned into his touch. "I'm scared, Ayan. Scared of losing you, of losing this." "You won't lose me," he said firmly. "No matter where you go, I'll be here, waiting, hoping." That evening, amidst the village's lively celebrations, Maya made her decision. She would leave, temporarily. She needed to confront her father, to fight for her choices and the life she was building, but she promised herself and Ayan that she would return. When she told him, Ayan held her close, his arms a haven against the uncertainty ahead. "Promise me one thing," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Promise me you'll come back." "I promise," she whispered, her words a vow etched in her heart. Under the starlit sky, as the village sang and danced, Maya and Ayan stood apart, their hands entwined. The love they had found was strong, but the road ahead was fraught with challenges. Yet in that moment, as they held on to each other, both silently vowed to fight for their love, no matter the cost. Maya left the village at dawn, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. Ayan stood by the edge of the fields, his silhouette framed by the golden sunrise. He watched her go, his chest tight with the ache of separation, but anchored by her promise to return. The villagers, perceptive to his pain, offered quiet words of comfort, but Ayan spoke little. He poured himself into his work, the physical labor a way to channel the void left in her absence. In the city, Maya was met by the cold grandeur of her family mansion. The imposing walls seemed to close in on her as she stepped inside. Her father awaited her in the grand hall, his stern expression a reflection of his displeasure. "So, you've finally decided to come home," he said, his voice sharp and cutting. "I trust this nonsense is over." Maya took a steadying breath, her resolve hardening. "It's not nonsense, Papa. What I've been doing in that village is more meaningful than anything I've ever done here." Her father's jaw clenched. "Meaningful?" he sneered. "Associating with peasants and falling for a farmer? That's beneath you, Maya. You're a Kapoor. You have responsibilities to this family, to our legacy." "No," Maya countered, her voice clear and unwavering. "I have responsibilities to myself. For the first time, I've found something real. Ayan is everything this world of pretense and privilege lacks. He's kind, hardworking, and honest. You could learn from him." Her father's eyes darkened and his voice turned icy. "If you choose this path, Maya, you'll lose everything. Your inheritance, your place in this family, your future." Maya's heart clenched, but her resolve did not falter. "If that's the cost of staying true to myself, then I'm willing to pay it." For a moment the room was silent, her words echoing with finality. Maya saw something flicker in her father's eyes, a crack in his stern demeanour, but he said nothing more. Back in the village, Ayan carried on with quiet determination, though the days without Maya felt unbearably long. He sought solace in the familiar rhythms of village life and the support of the community, who stood by him like family. Each evening as the sun set, he found himself by the river, their river. One night, gazing at the shimmering water, he whispered to the stars, "If you're out there, Maya, know that I'm waiting. No matter how long it takes." In the city, Maya's father struggled to suppress the doubts creeping into his mind. Despite his anger, he couldn't ignore the conviction in her voice when she spoke of Ayan. Out of curiosity, and perhaps a desire to understand, he began looking into the village, learning about its struggles and triumphs. Slowly, he began to see fragments of the world through Maya's eyes. A week after her return, Maya approached her father with a proposition. "Come with me to the village," she said. "See what I've been talking about. Meet Ayan. If you still feel the same after that, I'll respect your decision." Her father hesitated, the lines on his face deepening. But her unwavering gaze wore down his defenses. "Fine," he relented, "but don't expect me to change my mind." The day Maya returned to the village was one of celebration. Word of her arrival spread like wildfire, and the villagers gathered to welcome her back. Ayan, standing on the edge of the crowd, felt his heart leap the moment he saw her step out of the car. Without hesitation, he crossed the distance between them. "Maya," he breathed, his voice heavy with emotion. She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I told you I'd come back." Ayan pulled her into his arms, holding her as though to make up for every second of their time apart. The villagers erupted into cheers, their joy palpable and infectious. Maya's father observed from a distance, his expression inscrutable. But as he watched the way the villagers embraced Maya as one of their own, and the way Ayan's eyes lit up when he looked at her, his stern facade began to waver. That evening, the villagers hosted a grand feast to celebrate Maya's return. Her father, initially reserved, found himself drawn into conversations with the villagers. Their warmth and resilience surprised him, as did the stories of how Maya and Ayan had worked together to bring hope back to the community. Toward the end of the evening, Maya's father approached Ayan. The crowd hushed, sensing the gravity of the moment. "You're not what I expected," he admitted, his tone begrudgingly respectful. "And you're not as intimidating as Maya said," Ayan replied, a small disarming smile on his face. To everyone's surprise, Maya's father chuckled. Then his expression grew serious. "Do you love my daughter?" "With all my heart," Ayan said without hesitation. Her father studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Then prove it. Take care of her. Give her the life she deserves. If you can do that, you'll have my blessing." A collective cheer erupted from the crowd. Maya's eyes filled with tears as she hugged her father, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude. She turned to Ayan, her heart soaring. Later that night, as the celebrations wound down, Maya and Ayan stood beneath the stars by the river. The world felt quiet, as though it existed solely for them in that moment. "I still can't believe this is real," Maya said softly, her hand resting in his. "It's real," Ayan assured her, "and it's just the beginning." From his pocket, he pulled out a simple silver ring, its modesty a reflection of his sincerity. "I don't have much to offer, Maya, but I promise to love you with all that I am. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, Ayan. 1,000 times, yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, as though blessing their union. They kissed under the vast, starlit sky, their hearts full of love and hope. Together they knew they could face any challenge the world brought their way. The wedding was held beneath the sprawling banyan tree at the heart of the village, a place steeped in meaning for Maya and Ayan. This sacred spot, where they had shared their deepest hopes and dreams, was now adorned with strings of vibrant marigolds and glowing lanterns that cast a magical light over the gathering. The villagers worked tirelessly to prepare the celebration, their joy infusing every detail with warmth and love. Maya stood dressed in a simple yet elegant traditional outfit, hand-stitched by the village women as a gift. Though she came from a wealthy background, she had insisted on blending in, honouring the people who had embraced her as one of their own. Her father, once stern and unyielding, now stood by her side with a proud yet tender expression. "You look radiant," he said, his voice gruff with emotion, "and happy. I can see now that this is where you truly belong." Maya smiled, her eyes misting. "Thank you, Papa, for seeing me, for understanding." Across the clearing, Ayan waited, his nerves hidden beneath a calm demeanour. Dressed in a crisp white kurta, he radiated quiet confidence, but his eyes betrayed his anticipation. The moment Maya appeared, walking toward him with grace and determination, his breath caught. In that instant, the world faded, leaving only her. The ceremony was simple, heartfelt, and unforgettable. As they exchanged vows under the banyan tree, the love they shared radiated like a beacon. Maya promised to honour the village and the life she had chosen, while Ayan vowed to cherish her and build a future where their dreams could flourish together. When the time came to exchange rings, the villagers erupted in cheers, their happiness as vibrant as the marigolds above. As the newlyweds stood among the well-wishers, children danced around them, elders blessed them, and Maya's father, now fully accepting of their union, clasped Ayan's hand. "I see now why she chose you," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "Take care of her." "I will," Ayan promised, the weight of his words evident in his tone. With Maya's arrival, the village began to change in ways no one had thought possible. The repaired well became a symbol of new beginnings, but it was only the start. Ayan, inspired by Maya's innovative ideas, introduced modern farming techniques that improved crop yields. Maya used her family connections to secure funding for better irrigation systems and, her proudest achievement, a small school for the village children. The school quickly became the heart of the village. Maya, who had discovered a passion for teaching, spent her mornings with the children, their laughter echoing through the courtyard. Ayan often watched from a distance, his heart swelling with love and pride. In those moments he saw the life they had built together, the life they had dreamed of by the river. However, the path to progress was not without its challenges. As the village grew, so did the complexities of managing its newfound prosperity. Some villagers resisted change, fearing it would erode their traditions. Maya and Ayan worked tirelessly to bridge the divide, ensuring progress honoured the village's heritage while embracing a brighter future. One evening, after a particularly tense meeting with the elders, Maya found herself sitting by the river, her feet submerged in the cool, calming water. Ayan joined her, his presence grounding. "Do you ever feel like we're trying to do too much?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of doubt. Ayan shook his head, his gaze steady. "Number what we're doing matters, Maya. It's not always going to be easy, but nothing worth having ever is." She leaned her head against his shoulder, drawing strength from his reassurance. "I couldn't do this without you." "You'll never have to," he said, wrapping an arm around her. "We're in this together." Their love became the foundation of the village's transformation, a beacon of hope that inspired others to believe in unity and resilience. Ayan's practicality and Maya's vision complemented each other, creating a synergy that propelled the village forward. One sunny afternoon, as Maya strolled through the fields with a basket of freshly picked vegetables, she noticed a crowd gathering near the edge of the farm. Curious, she approached and found Ayan standing proudly in front of a newly constructed community centre. "What's this?" she asked, her eyes wide with surprise. Ayan smiled, taking her hand and guiding her inside. The centre was a blend of tradition and modernity, designed as a space for learning, meetings, and celebrations. "This is for you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "A place where you can continue the work you've started, where you can help this village grow in ways we never imagined." Maya's eyes filled with tears as she looked around. A yarn. It's perfect. Thank you. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Thank you, Maya, for bringing hope to this village, for bringing light into my life. As the seasons passed, the village flourished, becoming a symbol of what could be achieved when love, determination, and community came together. The fields thrived, the children's laughter filled the air, and the once-forgotten village began drawing visitors from neighbouring towns, eager to learn from its success. Maya and Ayan's love story became a legend, a tale of two people from different worlds who came together to create something extraordinary. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they would sit by the river, their hands intertwined, reflecting on how far they had come and dreaming of the future. And as the golden light bathed the village they had transformed, they knew that their love had not only changed their lives, but had also forever changed the heart of the village they called home.